It's now my great pleasure to introduce Jo Lawrence, who really doesn't need any introduction. She's been around for such a long time in the Western area, working really hard in the social welfare and community services sector. Jo is the District Director for FaCS in Western New South Wales. Welcome, Jo.
Thanks very much. Can I just thank Lionel and his dancers for a fantastic welcome to country, and also to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and to pay my respects to elders past and present. It seems I'm doomed. I always follow great presentations. So recently I was in Walgett and I had to do some announcement. So they had a rap singer going on, so everyone was crowding around and having a good time. And they said, "Oh, we want to announce Jo Lawrence making an announcement." Just goes back to their seats, and doesn't. So I say my bit, and then they had Korean dancers after me. It's like, "Hey, got a Korean dancer!" Everyone goes, "Raise this back up to the front stage and start dancing." So I'm sorry, I feel tempted to shut the doors, but anyway. So look, a warm welcome to you, and thank you very much for making your time to be here today. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I've looked at the agenda, and it looks fantastic. So the purpose really is twofold. One is to give you good professional development, but as importantly, it's about you networking and expanding your connections within the sector. We found out through the consultation process that was recently done around targeted intervention program that increasingly the sector was becoming quite siloed. So today we're deliberately sort of wanting to get you engaged, having conversations, so you start to sort of broaden your networks and create new ones, so that we actually act as a collective rather than a whole lot of isolated services at the end of the day. If there's one word, I guess, that sort of encapsulates what we're all going through at the moment, it's reform. You know, we have the disability services within family communities going across to the NGO sector and to the NDIA. We have out-of-home care, massive reforms happening there. We've just seen these specialist housing services go through reform, and we're just about to go through the early intervention and prevention area as well. And the reform agenda actually offers you a great opportunity for growth, to consolidate your position, to go in different directions perhaps. But in order to capitalise on that, you actually need to have good information to make informed decisions. And it's pleasing to see that in the conference you have lots of highly regarded speakers, and a number of whom are talking about evidence-informed practice. I just want to talk about this for a moment. The collection and the use of evidence is actually crucial. It's becoming more so as we go forward. I was on a panel at a recent conference about evidence-based policy development, and there was just example after example of cases where organisations had failed to either collect or adhere to the evidence, or be guided by the evidence they were collecting, and oftentimes with dire consequences for both their clients and also for themselves. And one particular example sort of just stuck with me, and you might think, good grief, what's NASA's shuttle program got to do with us? But the principles are absolutely the same. So you would all be aware of the Challenger disaster of the NASA program some years ago now. But it's actually what happened behind the scenes before that disaster occurred, which is really enlightening about what happens with organisations and how we at times do and don't adhere to their own rules and take advice and look at the evidence. So the shuttle itself, it was a big public relations exercise for NASA. They had the teacher on board who was going to be promoting education and really sending out a message about making space accessible to all. And so there was a lot riding on this, and they had 7 aborted attempted takeoffs before this final event. So pressure was mounting to say, come on, everyone's watching, we've got to get this going. And so they had a sort of a meeting again. This is the 8th time. Let's have everyone in. And so they brought everybody to the table to say, look, we really want to go tomorrow. What do you think? It should be noted that at that meeting, the safety committee did not attend. So that's a pertinent piece of information. And so they decided, yes, we're going to go. But what they chose to ignore was that never in the history of the shuttle program had they actually launched below 12 degrees. And if you looked at the photographs of Cape Canaveral at that time, there was icicles hanging off all the metalwork. And so and I should also point out that they did not have the people who had the jet engines that are strapped to the shuttle, which gets it out of Earth's gravity. They weren't in attendance, because if they had been in attendance, they would have said, our manual says you should not actually operate below 4 degrees. And as I said, never had they done that from 12 degrees under. That was a piece of information was not given. And so, launching. So if you actually looked at the video, it is a gripping story. If you actually looked at the video of that as it's taking off, you'll see a puff of smoke and then it catches on fire. What happened was the O-rings, which actually sealed it off, don't operate and below 0, and they basically got corrupted and they exploded. And so 73 seconds into takeoff, Challenger exploded. And so it's really interesting that key people weren't asked vital questions, key evidence was ignored, and as a result of that, really poor decisions were made. They should never have taken off in the first place. And as they just waited for the temperature to go up, we probably never would be talking about this now. So I just want you to sort of take on board that message that, in actual fact, this is a time, it's all changing for us. We have to sort of really be able to advocate strongly for what's happening for yourselves, for our client group, and for rural remote communities. So please bear that in mind. And just on the issue of rural remote communities, I think it's actually incredibly important, because anyone who's spent more than a week out here working in the service systems knows that our service system is quite thin. And so we're struggling with a whole range of issues, anything from reduced range of services for our small communities, regionalised specialist services, being sort of centralised, so you have a fly-in, fly-out model. We have challenges in recruitment and retention. It's hard to get skilled workers, and accessing culturally sensitive services is becoming, is always been a real challenge for the Aboriginal community. And so we're resource allocation driven, and the challenge for us obviously is that resource allocation is driven by population density, and we only have 280,000 people roughly within the Western District, so every time it comes out to sort of the slice of the pie, we never quite get what we want. Therefore, it's incumbent on everybody in this room, all of us in FaCS, that we build on we articulate the challenges, the strengths and the opportunities for the clients we serve, the communities that we work in, and the organisations we operate within. And so we can only do that if we actually collect the information and actually challenge people on the other side of the hill about our reality and what it's like. And so this is as much about collecting that good information, acting on it, but it's also about being innovative and looking at new ways. What's the definition of madness? What was it Einstein said, is keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we can't do that, and I can certainly say within FaCS and the hard work that the staff will be doing, working with communities and with the NGO communities as well, around how we actually sort of do things differently. So we're trying to look at more integrated ways of getting, so the whole service system acts collectively. We're trying to make it easier, so there's sort of like, if you like, no wrong door or fewer doors which clients can work through. If we find it challenging to work in the service system, how difficult is it for our clients that we seek to serve? It's a myriad of mirrors and smoke and bits and pieces. It's hard. And so we have to make it easier for them, and I believe that if we can actually break that nexus, then in actual fact we will have fewer crisis incidents. We'll have more people opting for early intervention prevention because, one, they trust the system, and within the Aboriginal community it's a real dilemma. And not just with ACCHOs, but with mainstream as well, there's a real sort of cautiousness around engaging there. So they tend not to engage until it becomes a crisis. And so we're trying to sort of break down some of those barriers and give people confidence in the system. And that will only happen if you and I, royal us, can actually get it together and works more seamlessly. So at FaCS we are very keen to do that. I'm interested to hear what comes out of today. I think that we would welcome your ideas. If there's ways in which we can do things differently and build on your expertise and your wisdom, absolutely happy to do that. So please see that as an open invitation going forward. I actually also want to acknowledge the contribution that you make, and despite the challenges that we have out here, There's some very good work that's happening, and that's because of you and the hard work that you're doing now, so please accept my thanks for that. I also would just like to thank the guest speakers for their wisdom and expertise. I'd like to thank the facilitators. I'm sure you're in safe hands here. Lots of years and years and years of experience. So please enjoy. Soak it all up. Enjoy, take up the ideas, the tricks and the tools that you're going to see. Make new links. Ask lots of questions. But also recognise that you have knowledge and you have expertise, and you should share that as well. So in essence, please use this time to thrive. Thank you very much.